The 5 minute bankruptcy intake. How do you do it? Is it possible? I'm here with Jason Amerine from Castle Law, Kansas and Missouri. And we were having a call one day about an intake. And Jason called me after the call. He said, Phil, this is crazy. A 30-minute intake, a 15-minute intake? My calls take 5 minutes. And now, obviously, there's a lot more to it. And that's what I want to unpack on this call, Jason. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
So, Jason, lead flow. We're all feeling it right now in the debtor bar. Lead flow's coming through the roof. And I have some firms that can't even answer the phone. And the reason why is their staff's on the phone with the prospect for 20, 30 minutes, sometimes more. But you have a different model with your firm. I mean, you just told me the numbers. On Monday, you did 17 intakes, Tuesday, 13, so far today, 14. So let's unpack how you handle a lead call and what you do, et cetera, et cetera.
Most of our appointments are set either online or they are live calls that come in during business hours. So, there's times I'll wake up from the night before and there's another five appointments that weren't there before because they can set them overnight.
Yeah.
So those automatically just get set onto our Outlook calendar, the ones that book online. Now, if they set an appointment through my receptionist, she'll just go ahead and find a time that works. A lot of people don't want to talk to a lawyer right then and there. A lot of times the lawyers aren't available because we're already doing another intake.
Mm-hmm.
So we typically will set those appointments for 30-minute increments. The prospect can book it on the 15s if they want. I'm the owner of the company. I'll do about 90% of intake. I do have two other bankruptcy attorneys that can help me with spillover, but I do the bulk of them. And so I just set my day in accordance with doing those intakes. And the other attorneys are doing the 341s, doing docket call, stuff like that.
So when a call comes in, so I mean, are you really on the phone for 5 minutes with the attorney, or was that sort of like being a little facetious? I mean, are you when I think you said it. You said, "Hey, I'm going to on a fishing trip, and I'm going to take calls on the boat." Like, what exactly? What's the practicality when a lead comes in is on it? Like, how do you bond with them in a way where they're not backspacing on Google to call another attorney?
hmm
They feel heard enough by Castle Law to actually go to the next step and start the process. And I should have framed this in the beginning. Tell how many filings are you doing a month right now?
We're probably doing about 60.
Okay. So highly effective, highly process oriented, but lead flow is important. So how what do these intakes look like? And how long are they and what do you go through?
So, I mean, the other two attorneys that help me out, theirs are much more involved because they do a lot of the back end stuff. So they want the cases to be super detailed on the front end. I spend very little time just making sure that they qualify for bankruptcy, first of all. If they do qualify, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, and then we talk about the cost. Most of my clients, all they care about is can I help them and what's it cost?
Mhm.
And that doesn't take a lot of questions to get to that
Yeah.
result. We are a little unique here, though, where we are on a state line. The laws are completely different between Kansas and Missouri. Sometimes that makes it easier. It just depends on the situation. Not all my intakes are 5 minutes. I mean, there's some that do go on for a while. It just depends on how complicated they are.
What's a while for you?
Oh, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Still shorter than most. Okay.
Right.
But I think you just brought something up. Your clients want to know, can you help them? And what's the cost? I mean, that's a good summary because that really what it boils down to. I mean, if the client had a choice, going back to the matrix, blue pill, talk to my attorney, red pill, get rid of all my debt, and like it's gone without talking to an attorney, they would gladly take the latter, right?
Right.
And so how do you unpack this? Like, so let's just role play for a second. I'm a debtor attorney. I'm calling and I'm like, hey, I'm just checking in on a bankruptcy. I'm not sure it's right. Like, how do
Okay.
you dig through this help and cost, like cut
Sure.
through all the emotional drama of like, oh my God, I got this going on and this going on and this going on. Like, yeah,
So, first of all, nobody in my office cares more than I do. So I want to make sure I'm doing right by the client. I'm not going to take on a bankruptcy just for the heck of it. I'm going to make sure they're properly qualified and they need it. I can't
Yeah.
tell you, I mean, even today, I had two clients I turned away because they're judgment proof. They're on Social Security, they have
Mhm.
no assets.
Yeah.
They don't need to waste their money on a bankruptcy unless they just want to get rid of the stress that comes from the phone calls and stuff like that. But those are calls I usually don't, I won't take them as a bankruptcy client, and I'll let them know,
Yeah.
why. And so typically my intake will kind of go like this. I'll ask them, what state do you live in, Missouri or Kansas?
Hmm.
That's where it always starts. I'll ask them if they're single or married.
Hmm.
I'll ask them how many people live in their household. I find out if they pay rent or a mortgage. If it's
Hmm.
rent, I just move on to the next question. If it's mortgage, I do find out how much do they owe on the house? What's the house worth? Are they current on the house? I mean, those obviously are relevant questions. Next question, I'll ask him, do you have any vehicles? What's the
Hmm.
year, make, and model? How much do you owe? Did you buy the vehicle more or less than 2.5 years ago? So we can determine if there's a claim down, find out what the monthly payment is, find out if they're current. Go into income, ask them what their monthly gross income is. If they're married, I'll ask them what the spouse's monthly income is as well. Ask them how much unsecured debt do they have, any previous bankruptcies in the last 8 years, and then I start giving them the advice. And those are my questions.
That's it.
And so at that point, I can determine what chapter they need to do. Sometimes I had a guy earlier today. He's making six figures. I can't tell him what I can do for him until I see his pay stubs.
Hmm.
That one's going to take a little bit longer. That's going to
Hmm.
be basically two intakes. I'm
Hmm.
going to do a means test and all that stuff.
What percentage of your clients fall into a 7 versus a 13?
It's pretty high on sevens right now. I'd say 55, 60%.
Okay, so you're not just moving everyone to a 13 to make it
No.
easier. You're really giving them the option on that. And and Jason, so how do you deal with, like, this is a common question I hear on our strategy calls often.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, the clients just want to talk and they need to be heard.
Mhm.
Like there's a segment of the debtor bar that believes that they're like a counselor,
Uh,
right? And it's like I need a counsel and I need to be the therapist for the client, but that's not you, clearly.
right.
How do you get around, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
If they want to go down that rabbit hole, I usually will tell them, nobody in my office is going to judge you for how you got here. Let's just get you through it.
mhm,
It doesn't matter how you got here. We can fix it. This is what I can do for you. And usually just saying that, they kind of move on because then they feel like they're not being judged. They don't have to explain themselves. It doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes, I get some talkers and I just go with it.
yeah, roll with it.
I mean, if it takes 30 minutes for that consultation, then so be it.
So the tip, how many would you say, what percentage of the time do you get a talker?
Oh, it's pretty small. I mean, it's
Okay.
maybe a couple a week.
See, the thing is, Jason, like, I've known you for many, many years, right? I mean, you know, you don't give off that energy, right? Like, you're not giving off the energy of like, well, look, tell me about what's going on. Like, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden, well, I lost my job, and then this happened, and this happened, and I mean, you're just like, hey, let's talk about your situation and see if we can help. We can't help everybody, but let me just walk through this series of questions. I can tell you what happened, and if they start going down a path, hey, thanks. Yeah, we're not going to judge you here. This is what we
Right.
deal with, right? Do you think that's fair? That ring true?
Oh yeah, and I'll tell them, most people that do bankruptcy do it for one of two reasons, divorce and medical.
Yeah.
So I'll say that to them. I'll say, most of our clients are here because of not anything they did, deliberate. Nobody gets married to plan on getting divorced. No
Hmm.
one anticipates getting a cancer diagnosis. Those are things that just happen to unfortunate people. And usually if you just kind of relate to them in that sense, we'll say, hey, I'll get you through it. And at that point, it just comes down to if they can afford it or not.
Hmm.
We do payment arrangements on the Chapter 7, and that is usually where it gets tied up on trying to get the case converted to a retained person. We have a
Right.
fair amount of my intakes where they can't retain you today, but they can on next payday or something like that.
Right.
And we'll set all those for follow-ups where, we'll touch it again. Hey, are you ready to get started? And go from there.
So what would you say to the debtor attorney that feels that you're not serving the client by letting them express their feelings or spending more time with them up front.
I mean, I feel like we do that later on.
Hmm.
That specific appointment, uh, from what I tell somebody that might feel that way, I'll say, right now we're just trying to figure out if bankruptcy is best for you, which chapter,
Hmm.
and this is what it costs. After that, we'll give them all the time in the world. We'll sit down, go over their packet, go over their documents, have somebody sit down and do a pretty lengthy signing. It gets a little bogged down on that end of stuff, but
Hmm.
we have way more intake coming in than we do those other appointments.
Right.
'Cause you lose a fair amount of your retained clients to lack of payment. They
Yeah.
won't get you
Yeah.
documents. So we retain way more clients than we actually file.
So, Jason, do you have openings tomorrow? If someone called in, so right now it's 2:47 your time, right?
Mhm.
If someone called in today, like right now at 2:47 your time, would there be a time today to talk to someone, or would they be pushed tomorrow, or when would they be pushed to?
Up until I booked the Zoom call with you, yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. Got it. I
But
took the last spot. Okay.
I do have some stuff right around like 4:30 where someone could book, but it's pretty booked up the rest of the day.
Okay. So I want to
If
put
they,
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say if they had to talk to somebody today, I would either have to squeeze them in before another one, or one of my other two attorneys would have to take the call.
So I want to put this in perspective. We have debtor attorneys that are filing, you know, decent amount, right? 20 filings a month, and they're booked out 5 days. You're doing 60 a month, and you could get someone in today if they need to, and definitely tomorrow, right?
Definitely tomorrow.
I mean, see, the concept lead flow with debtor attorneys and the debtor bar is so high, and it's so easy when someone gets to the point of like, I want to talk to a bankruptcy attorney, and they're Googling that or they're calling in. That's a huge step for a debtor. And you
Right.
have got to take that call. Like you've got to take the call. The thing I love about you, Jason, is with our influencer calls and our live transfers to you, your team always answers,
Right.
right? And it's a breakdown. I mean, I have large filers. I'm talking, I had one filer 2 weeks ago, 100 plus a month, that was telling me that my live transfers didn't show up to their next appointment. And I'm like, what do you mean didn't show up? These are live transfers. It's a 100% show rate. And they're like, oh, we couldn't take the call. But you're doing 60 a month and you're getting people in tonight or tomorrow. Speak into that. If you were coaching a debtor attorney on the need to take the calls, what would you say?
Well, I mean, I would say if you don't answer that call, you're risking that to use an old term, they're going to flip the yellow pages to the next law firm and
Yeah.
move on. We get a fair amount of referrals, believe it or not, from debtors, attorneys, competitors of ours that can't get people in, so they send them down to us. That's more common when it's like an emergency filing,
Right. I
but we'll
mean,
still,
that is unbelievable.
yeah.
I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time. My front desk, I have two receptionists, and
Mhm.
they can kind of tag team each other when one's on the phone, if another call comes in. So we might have more employees than most of the firms you deal with. There's 14 of us, but we also do
Mhm.
personal injury.
Okay.
I don't know if the other firms you're working with have the same staff.
Yeah,
Um,
no, of course, staff changes for sure, for sure. I
and
mean, but I mean, staffing changes, but you always have to take the lead.
right,
You have to take that call. And it boggles my mind when, oh, we're booking out. I understand booking out a day, 2 days, maybe three, but over that, like every day that goes by, the show rate goes down and down and down and down.
right. Yeah,
As John Orcutt says, the best time to talk to a debtor is when they're calling in.
right.
Yeah.
We used to make it where we would only take same day appointments or the next day. We had to change the online booking because people weren't able to book on a Monday
Yeah.
on a
Right.
Friday.
Yeah.
We had to push that out to 3 days now, but that's as far as we go is 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're clearly, leading the way. If you're getting referrals from the debtor bar, your competitors, and they're
Hmm.
saying call Castle Law, then you're winning. So if anyone watching this program, if you have a debtor in Missouri, Kansas, Castle Law, Jason Amerine, this is the guy to go to. If he's getting referrals from his competitors, he'd be a good person to send business to.
Another thing that we do that I don't know if most of your colleagues do
Uh-huh.
is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the owner of the firm and I personally meet with most of these clients.
Mhm.
They see me on the ads and that does help a lot. They feel like they know me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, to have a just intake person, I don't think would be as effective. I know I've watched some of your videos where you have an intake person.
Yeah.
I can tell you my close rate is much higher than my other two attorneys just because they've seen me. So,
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, best practice is the face of the firm. There's no doubt. The
mhm,
distinction is a lot of bankruptcy attorneys don't understand the concept of leading someone to a decision, and they become counselors. Oh, you should consider this. They're like an advisor as opposed to, oh, here's what you need to do, right? Then
right.
that's where it gets a little messy because the bankruptcy debtor attorney just doesn't have the gift. You're gifted in that, Jason. I mean, you just clearly you are, and you're leading your team that way. Wow. What
Well, I
else?
appreciate
Anything else
it.
come to
And
mind on
just
that?
if anybody has any questions, want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to talk to them.
Great. Jason, thank you for your time. Perfect information for our community.
You're welcome. Thank you.